So there you go. And here is, the one which you have done. But as I told you, the best habit is to go ahead and have a overall view here. And overall view says where are we now and what's the journey planned for the day. So there we go. I will go ahead and put it in slideshow mode, and that's fair. So this whole integration, scope, schedule, cost, this all thing we have done. Quality was also done in the prior week, then resources was also done. Now what we have done yesterday is a risk, and out of this plan procurement and some concepts related to procurement is what we have done. We need to do conduct procurement, control procurement, which is what is the plan. Then comes communication, three of those processes, and then four stakeholder processes. That should, bring into 4.7 of this project. And 4.7 is basically close project. But this project is only a phase in your project. My project called as a delivering training and enabling you to go ahead and give the exam will get closed here. But the whole project will get over only when you go ahead, book that exam, crack that exam, and send me the sweets. So the day on which I will get the sweets, I will start closing each one of your project. But it's very important milestone that, today we are going to close a project called as the PMP training. So that's where we'll be, starting here. And so starting with the procurement where we left. Sanjeev, are you there? Sanjeev, is he joined? No, he's not. Okay. Yes, I said it and he's coming. So there I go. I will have to go sequentially, but I know you have done it. So this whole thing we have done it. Some concepts here, very important, the contract should be mentioning and all that, deliverable, then seller induction. If you want any training along with that, any documentation along with specific packing instructions, if it is a big heavy material and all that thing, you need to very clearly mention what are the packing instruction. If you are having some specific expectations, if you don't have, obviously, you will have to then rely on, the judgment by the supplier. These are very important things. We say that, risk management should be done along with the seller. Don't say that seller is on the other side and I am as a customer on this side. It is his headache. No, it's joint headache. Procurement may, if he makes mistake, while he would be paying the predominant cost, you also would be doing so. So good to do that. That's what it is saying. We have seen it. Technology is working very effectively these days to, to get the advantage of that. Trial engagement is very commonly done. For example, when there is a prime customer, particularly project-oriented organizations, if there is a prime customer which is going to ask for the services. So here, let's say, I'm just taking some name, let's say Bank of America. Bank of America is interested in, taking some services, some solution there. And here is, I'm just taking the name, maybe TCS. If TCS is there and they are asking for some services from TCS, it's quite possible that, not that everything TCS does. Some part of that they want, to be partnering with, let's say, whatever third party, call it, whatever, maybe the soft solution, this, some name of the, relatively smaller company. So they are going to do it. Now, what they are trying to say in trial engagement, let's say they will, they will go ahead and bid to, this. Bank of America will say that supply it to us. Let us see that if we are happy, we'll give you the contract. If we are not happy, we will not. Now there is a catch, because why would TCS pay soft solution without having any contract in hand? So what do? They do trial engagement. What does it mean? They will have an understanding saying that in this particular thing, when we are doing the bidding and that initial prototype and all that thing, let us invest ourselves, which means TCS will invest into that. Soft Solutions will, invest into that, and with the hope that this contract, which is a bigger one later, is going to come. And there is an understanding. If that contract comes, TCS will agree, saying that now I will not change. If I get that big contract of whatever, $1 million, our partnership will remain. That's my promise. But if it doesn't come, then both of us lose. So that is the type of trial engagement you need to sometimes do it, which is very commonly done there. Tailoring considerations, agile, as I told you, T&M and cost reimbursable. These are the good contracts for the agile. Using fixed price is absolutely ridiculous because you don't freeze the scope, so you cannot get a fixed price. Unless the scope is frozen, you cannot freeze the cost. This plan procurement, we have already seen it. So multiple things, for example, contract making and payment systems. We spoke about it, things like SAP or any other systems where you can raise a PR, then process that PR, invite the bid, tabulate that bid, get the approval, the workflow for approval based on the value, and then, making the purchase order, sending the purchase order, receiving the materials, accepting materials and services, and then making the payment. This whole thing, whole chain is automated, and those systems are an EF which is available. If you are working into a small startup there where they might be still evolving there, this is an EF. You'll have to then use all your creativity and create appropriate Excel spreadsheets and whatnot, and still manage the contract and payment systems. Those are auditory requirements. You can't say that, because there is no system here, I was not able to maintain. That will not work. So that we have seen all that thing, these three type of things: for fixed price, then cost reimbursable, and the time and material. Time and material, there is a rate, time and material contract could be created very fast. It could be done very fast because what you are agreeing is only a rate. And agreeing the rate does not mean you are agreeing to pay him so much. It depends, based on actual consumption. It's a rate, that's it. But then later down the line, you need to be, particularly for this CR, cost reimbursable, and this time and material, you need to be very vigilant about, all the invoices. Whatever the vendor is submitting, verify that what they are claiming is that, in cost reimbursable, he will say that I have used, whatever, a high grade steel. And in reality, if he uses, an average grade steel, you need to have a very clear, vigilant, mindset there. In time and material, he might say that, my engineer worked for 26 days there, and on the other hand, he may not have used it. Or maybe he was putting timesheet for 26 days, but out of these 10 days, he was working for some other assignment. So that's bad. So for time and material and CR, you need to do a very clear, close thing on invoice. When it comes to the fixed price, you need not have to worry because you are going to see the outcome. You are going to see what services. The moment he has delivered it, whether he used so many people, what, it doesn't matter as long as it is done. Then expert judgment and all that thing. These are all the things. Market research is an essential thing when you are trying to figure out who is the vendor. For selection analysis, as I told you, multiple criterias are there. Sometimes they said whoever is the least cost, they will have sometimes, they will go ahead and two proposals, technical and commercial. They say that, the vendors will go ahead and give two, submission to one tender document. So if you have floated a tender into the market, you will tell all the prospect vendors and that give two bids. One is called as a technical bid and second is called as commercial. In the technical bid, don't provide any commercial deals. And the other envelope, which will have the price for that, it into a sealed way. It is actually sealed so that no one opens it. And now what happens? The senior management, head of the purchase or whatever, head of the procurement, he will keep those, commercial bids into his drawer in lock and key. They will not be available to all other people. Then there will be technical panel which will be set up, and that technical panel will go through this technical proposal in detail. So let's say there were some 7 vendors who gave this. They will say that out of these 7 vendors, these 3 are the best one. These are the top. Their technical proposals are accepted. Remaining 4 are not accepted. While doing so, they will not have an idea that what is the price quoted by them. Quite a few situations, they will go ahead and mask the name of the vendor as well. They will mask the name of the vendor. They will say, go ahead, read these 7 documents and tell me which one looks to be good for us. And people like you and me who are very technical guys will be sitting onto that panel doing all that evaluation, saying that these are good for us, these 3. Now, for only for these 3 that, envelopes or their commercial bids will be opened and said that this is the agency with whom we are going there. So this is very common thing, if it is a big ticket item, if you are investing, lakhs and lakhs rupees into some bid, this level of, diligence, this level of, care need to be taken there. So those are multiple things. Meetings are obviously required, particularly, to get best of the possible things, what should we do in-house, what should we outsource, what are the things, should we use cost reimbursable T&M or fixed price? These type of things are, meetings are done there. And what do you create is a procurement management now. So we have seen this yesterday, this is not just to, come up to the speed. So Ajay, welcome. Anushri, Divya.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, welcome. I said Mahesh Kumar,
Thank you.
Ravi.
Yes, Sanjay. Good morning.
So we are just, just seeing the same thing, Ravi, what we did yesterday.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
now going to start the new one. Procurement strategy, as I told you, you need to remember these numbers. They say for professional services, there are conditions like, no subcon, with subcon. No subcon means I will give that, if I give that order or, the contract to someone, he cannot go ahead and find another third party and subcontract it to someone else. I want to go ahead and say that there is no question of subcontracting. You need to do it yourself. So, because you want the data security, sometimes you want the quality control. So in that situation, you go ahead and say that there is no subcontracting there. Sometimes with subcontracting is allowed. Sometimes it's a joint venture. So basically, a small makeshift company is formed, which will be treated as the joint venture, and then that put together will deal with that particular thing. This type of joint venture and all that thing are commonly done in case of the building projects, townships and all that thing. If you realize it, you would realize that there are multiple builders who get associated only for that project, deliver that project, then they are not, they are not merged entity. It is not one company. It is only one company for that venture. So that arrangement is very common. For construction, it could be turnkey, which means right from design up to the development and making it, constructing it, and running it. So whole thing. Sometimes design and build, only design and build, then hand it over for the operations to the, prospect customer. Design, build, and build. So basically design it, and after that, the design will be shared with all the people. The company will get paid for doing the design. So if I want to go ahead and build a mall, I will go ahead and give, contract to 3 people saying that this is what to be designed. Please submit your designs. They will charge me whatever. I will take the bids and say that bye bye, abhi khatam ho gaya. I will choose one out of this. So best design I took for that given mall. Now that I will go ahead and float it, saying that who are the things which are going to build it. So the company which did the design itself also can bid. It could be one of the bidder there. So that's their design, build, and operate. So basically design, build, operate, and very often transfer as well. That in these days government commonly use this model. You do everything after for 5 years you collect the toll tax and then finally hand it over to us. So those type of things are done for construction. You need to check fixed price and all that. Bid documents are created there, and these three things we have seen: RFI, RFQ, and RFP. And yesterday someone was actually very clearly saying that RFQ and RFP very often we use the interchangeably, but the thin difference between them is that in RFQ you are having a very clear specification about what you want, and what is important there is what is the price. The comparison is predominantly on the price because you are very clearly saying what do you want. But if you want vendors to take their own liberty about it and come up with that, it's called as request for a proposal. So here you have to do double evaluation. First of all, evaluate his approach. Is that okay? If it is okay, then go ahead and evaluate his commercial thing. That's how these are there. Procurement statement of work. Basically, once you have created all that thing, you are going to give it to them. You need to write very clearly what all it should be there. What is to be done. Look at it here. SOW would be including specifications of what you want, quantity desired, quality levels, if there are any specific quality performance data, period of performance, this contract is from 1st of April to this and this, very clearly, work location, where will that be done, and any other requirement, terms of reference, then expected task by the contractor, what all you are expecting, any standard if you want him to follow, data expected, sometimes they expect the past experience, sometimes they come back and say that, can you tell me, give the references of, last 3 customers. So that data is also expected along with the proposal. So very clearly mention it there, saying that we are looking into this. Detailed list of the items to be delivered and bidding process timeline. Now, what is the bidding process? Bidding process sometimes, it's a long process. And then one of the very important thing, all the legality, government and everyone says that you must be very transparent about it. Now, what does it mean is that this bidding process, in the first place itself, it will be announced to all prospect. If there are 10 vendors who are qualifying, let's say I have 10 or maybe I have 15 total vendors who are registered vendor or approved vendor for, let's say, training service. I'm just taking training as an example. I want to outsource some training related task, which is huge in nature. It's a big one. For small thing, this process will be too much. So 15. So I realize that, for this particular work, I want only those partners or those vendors who are having the, turnover of them more than whatever, 1 crore for last 3 years. If that is there, only 8 of them will probably get qualified, and these 8 are eligible. Now, what they do is that if they are coming up with the thing, they will publish this bidding calendar. They said the tender will be opened on 1st of October. 1st of October, tender will be opened, which means, I will, all those 10 people or 7 people, they will get tender document. It itself is 200, pages sometimes. So their teams need to read with that, and by 15th of October, all of them need to come back with questions and answers if they are having any. Because, it's in interest of the customer that all the prospect vendor understand your requirement in the similar way. If they don't understand similar way, it's quite possible at the end of the, at the end of the whole process, you might go ahead and choose a vendor because he charged whatever $75,000. You gave a contract to someone who quoted $75,000, and you rejected one. Someone was saying, whatever, $85,000. You said that, "Okay, this is expensive, so let me not take it." You cancelled it. Now, what happened once work started? These people started asking, "Can you please reimburse the travel costs? Can you give me the infrastructure?" And you would realize that the 75,000 guy thought that you are going to give him the infrastructure and licenses and all. While this 85,000 guy was thinking that everything is included. So in reality, this was cheaper and you thought this is cheaper. To avoid it, what they do, they say that let all the vendors first of all understand the understanding should be same, then only let us speak. So what they do, by 15th of October, questions and answers are received. On the 18th October, there is a meeting arranged in the customer's, plant or office or whatever you call it as, and it is called as bidders conference. It is called as bidders conference. In bidders conference, all 7, vendors along with their technical guys will come into the same room. Now, each of the question which is submitted by each of the vendor will be read very loudly. What do I mean by loudly? Is that everyone will listen to the question which he has not asked. Maybe some competitor has asked that question. That will be read very loudly, and answer also will be given in the same forum equally loudly, which means everyone will actually get to know what question was asked by the competitor and the answer to that. Once all the things are done, they will say, "Are you all comfortable? Are you all right? Do you need any more information?" That will be given there. And the moment that is done, they said, "Done." Now, 25th of October. So, 25th of October, they say that now on this day, go ahead and submit your bid, RFP. Submit it there. See the advantage of this type of confusions may not occur because everyone is on the same page there. Then the comparison of the price and all that thing, or comparison of the proposal, will be apple to apple rather than apple to oranges. So 25th October, take that thing. Then also there is a bidding calendar also has saying that these bids will be opened on 30th of October. the selected vendor will be told on the 31st of October. The final proposal will be, final order will be given on 10th of November. So ये पूरा calendar, is given to all the prospect, vendors there. That is this called as bidding process timeline. Very clearly seen. Did you, ever read those tender documents? You would have noticed this sometimes. Did you? आजकल थोड़ा कम होता है because these days we don't, read too much in the newspapers, but it is there. Sanju, I'm sure you would be knowing this, isn't it?
Yes, sir. In
Common news,
newspaper
है ना?
currently, only in government company newspaper is.
हाँ, but if a private company is giving a big contract, then they also want to be, following similar sort of a safer approach, क्योंकि प्राइवेट कंपनी में क्या है आजकल संजू, वैसे देखा जाए तो लिस्टेड कंपनी है ये, करेक्ट?
Yes.
तो लिस्टेड कंपनी कोई प्रोप्राइटरी तो है नहीं, तो it's if not government agencies, the auditors might ask you saying that ki, did you fire did you follow a fair process, तो ये करना ही पड़ता है. That's where this is there. So you might, get some questions on this and a question on the bidder conference. Bidder conference basically says that, everyone should understand, or everyone's understanding should be same about the requirement rather than everyone thinks differently. Then comes source selection criteria. It says that what is important. For example, they will say what is the turnover of the vendor. That is one of the criteria, by the way. The turnover. And the people who are having a turnover between 1 crore to 3 crore will get 5 points. 3 crore to 10 crores will get 10 points, and 10 crore plus will get 20 points. This is pre-decided. So every bid which will come, every vendor which will come, he will get point for turnover. Then technical competency. So technical competency, 5 to 20 points. Then the management approach, multiple criterias and points are given. All the vendors who are applying, or all the proposals which are received, will be weighted against that, and whatever is the final one, that will be chosen there. So those are, that's what is, but one of the important thing which very commonly seen, and they throw in the question, and your general judgment on the basis of experience may not agree, is that PMI says that it's the best practice that source selection criteria must be decided before receiving the proposals. It should not be done after receiving. And not only that, they say that it should be shared with the prospect vendor. Now, is this done always? Is not necessarily. Is it legal binding that vendor ask you saying that please go ahead and tell me how are you going to evaluate? Frankly speaking, no. You might say that it's our information. We are not liable to give it to you. But PMI's belief is slightly different. They say that these criteria should be very clearly revealed to the prospect vendors. So, it's quite possible if they believe that, some of the vendors, they believe that we don't follow into that, they will withdraw out of it, directly, rather than he gives the thing, he works hard, he gives the pro, and then you say that ki, aapka na turnover is 3 crore hai, to I am not giving it to you. Now that's unfair. That's where they said sharing this is very important, with all the people. Make or buy decisions, obviously, is required. You are going to decide what thing you want to do in-house and which thing you want to go ahead and outsource them. Independent cost estimates, sometimes third parties are used. So this was there, I think almost all that. Outputs I didn't discuss a lot yesterday, so I repeated it in little more detail there. Now comes conduct procurement. It includes getting multiple vendors' responses. When this tender is now floated, they will give the response. Selecting the vendor with proper negotiations. Obviously, you cannot go ahead and do it. So negotiation that, whatever criteria are decided, source selection, use them and evaluate the thing, then do the negotiation and finally award the contract. That's the process where conduct will be. This will ensure that the legal formality is put into the place because it's a contract, it has to be properly handled there. These are the inputs which are well known. Procurement documentation, just now we have seen it, all those detailed thing, what is required. Seller's proposal. This is the new input, which means, once you float that tender, obviously the vendors will come back and take it there. And it's good practice to document separate technical, approach and price. I told you technical proposal and commercial proposal, separating them is always good, because the people who evaluate the bid on the technical thing, are not necessarily, could be involved into the commercial discussions, and the people who are doing commercial discussions may not be competent to do the technical evaluation. So it's good to, keep them, those two things separate. These proposals are then evaluated using the source selection criteria, as I told you, once they come. Some EFs here are local laws and regulations regarding procurement. There are too many, isn't it? For example, each GST, who will pay the GST? Will the GST set off? These are our local law. Earlier days, there were too many laws there. There was excise, there was a custom duty and whatnot. So all that thing you need to be now. In different countries, they are different. It's an EF, you need to be doing it. Economical environment, existing vendor based, and sometimes there is a MOU. If it is there, then it becomes easier, because large conditions, broad things are already in place. You need to only go ahead and provide him, and then he gives bid only for that work package under that agreement. OPS could be list of preferred seller, which I was, yesterday we have seen it. The vendors list, the vendor approved vendor list is a very common process for all the companies. So that's what he's saying. Organizational policies, for selection. They said that for, if a deal is more than so many things, the vendor should have turnover so much. If there is a deal related to certain material, he should be only an Indian company. You can't outsource it to third party. If it is something related to security and all that thing. So those type of policies are there. You need to adhere to that. Template for guidelining the standards, and procedure, so invoicing and payment processes. I spoke about PR system and all that. Tools, obviously, people like Sanjeev who are in the procurement department are demonstrating their expertise, and they can do it. It's not Tom, Dick and Harry job to do the procurement. Advertisements, you need to publish it over the portals. It could be physical, newspaper. It depends on what type of things you are procuring. So advertisement, and this is what I was saying. Bidder conference is called. All the vendor for IQ are called in one room. All the queries raised by them are read loudly, and answers are given equally loudly, which means, everyone is on the same page. Then you need to analyze the data for the given selection criteria, given weightages. You need to say that which, out of maybe whatever, out of that 10 vendors, who are the 4 which are selected based on that data. And with those 4, there would be independent negotiations to come up with the final price. While doing this, you need to do the negotiations. For that, you need interpersonal and team skills. People who are in the sales department, people who are in the purchase department need to have good interpersonal and team skills. I'm sure, everyone here will agree to that. Negotiations, you might get some people related questions in that what should be your approach. Remember, negotiations need preparation. Don't say that negotiations means, I will go to the office and, there would be 3 vendors sitting there, one after the other. I will do a 15-minute meeting with them and do negotiation. It's not. Negotiation also needs the preparation. You should be very clearly ready, saying that what are you ready to give and what is that you don't want to compromise on. This is something which I cannot compromise. So be prepared about it. Secondly, negotiation, they say, is not one meeting solution. Negotiations in the commercial space continues at times for months together. Some deal which was rejected in the first one, 6 months down the line, you might end up actually taking the same deal there. It's not your individual defeat. That is the process. So these are people related questions. They will say that squeezing in the vendor as much possible, trying to squeeze as much out of him is not the objective of negotiation. Negotiation is they call it as win-win. It is for win-win, which means you should get the best deal and vendor should get a good customer. Both of them, if you go ahead and try to squeeze him in lot, out of the compulsion, out of the business requirement, out of the target, he might accept that offer. And in the process, he may not be able to deliver. If that happens, it is possible in the vendor stage, you would have saved whatever, $1,000 आपने save किया होगा. But because this vendor was not able to complete it on time, eventually other vendor, and your total expenditure might go to 10,000. So win-win is important. Don't try to, do that, and you might get some decent questions which will throw some scenario and ask you around it. At the end of the contract will be awarded to that supplier. Suppliers will be selected, at the obviously, once that negotiations, whatever 1, 2, 3, whatever suppliers are there, and then agreement will be put. Agreement is, it's an agreement to be done. It is obviously, remedial into the court if it doesn't work. So if there is there is a dispute onto that, it could go into the court. But there are 3 steps. They say that first one, they say that you should go ahead and sit across the table and negotiate. This should be always the first step. So if there is a dispute between vendor and the customer, they should first of all try to resolve it by sitting and trying to resolve it. If that doesn't happen, there is a thing called as ADR. ADR is a short form of alternative dispute resolution. So what happens is that if you don't come across anything, there is an agency or there is a body which is predefined in the contract. ADR cannot be found after there is a fight. It is done in the contract. When it is done, say that if there is a dispute, a team from a team from customer, this team from the vendor will come together and they will take the decision, and whatever decision they take, both of us, we need to respect it. That's called as ADR. This is the second level by which you should be doing. The third one, and very clearly PMI says, don't go into that. It is called as litigation. इसी में से भी नहीं हुआ तो then, one of the party moves to the court and try to get it settled. PMI very clearly says, ये route में मत जाओ, don't go there. In Marathi, there is a saying, I think almost sure it would be there in all the languages. They said, a wise man should not actually go to the court. शहाण्याने कोर्टाची पायरी चढू नये, which means a wise man should never go to the court. I mean, this is a very old wisdom which is being said about it, but PMI also in a way indirectly supports it, that litigation don't go into that because it's a time consuming. At the end of it, one of the party win, the other party lose the litigation, but business in the process is already impacted. Both the thing vendor and customer pay the price for getting into the court. So you should be the thing. Yeah. The major components are procurement statement of work, deliverables, schedule, milestone, pricing and payment terms. Payment terms, who will pay what taxes, incentives or penalties if there are any. Then inspection, who will go ahead and do the acceptance criteria, warranty. Post go live, how many months, how many days you need to do the support, and under what conditions will that be there, process of handling changes. So if out of this fixed price deal there are changes, what is the process? Document that into the contract and follow it later. Termination clause is called as force majeure. Basically it says that if what will be the situation in which this contract will be treated as null and void, which means it is no more applicable. So for example, if if vendor doesn't do something like that, it will be treated as so there is no way about it. So those things are clearly there in contract. And change requests sometimes. Now comes to the last one called as control procurement. Having done the conduct procurement, giving the contracts, negotiations, all that, time to control the procurement to ensure that the vendor and buyers fulfill the terms as agreed, so that they are supplying as per the timeline, as per the quality. You are accepting it, you are paying them on time. Paying them on time is also a legal responsibility of you. It's not that only customer, a vendor is responsible to do something. It is even customer who is responsible to pay it on time. So that's what is very clearly track the procurement relationship in most of the situation. In good old days, when we used to do this, Sanjeev, when we used to do it, manually before all the ERP systems, we used to maintain one file for each vendor. So I still remember, our boss used to say कि वो यार वो progressive enterprise का file लेके आना. Now what is that? All the things, all POs you are giving, any negotiations, he is giving proposal, all those will be stored into that file. There will be one file. And in that, whole of his, if I were to use the word Kundali, maintain hota hai. Now that is what is this. Nowadays, obviously, you don't need a physical file. The online systems do it. Correct, Sanju?
Correct, correct.
So SAP में तो ये बहुत सारा है, but any, I mean, there are all the systems which will,
So,
there will be SRM systems. They call it as supplier relationship management system. They will allow you to, do this functionality, not very difficult either. Make the changes in the contract if needed, closing the contract once they are delivered. Once it is done, you should go ahead and very clearly write it to the customer saying that, vendor, saying that this deal is now done and this PO is now closed, which means whatever you are supposed to give, you have given it to us. Whatever we are going to pay, we have given it to you, and the deal is done. The reason for which this closing is important, friends, because once the project gets over, if the project team is no more going to be there, the project manager is going to accept the services, reject the services, whatever. What happens is that after the project is over, after the project gets over, 3 months down the line, if there is a dispute about it, saying that, was there something short of supplied, or तो वो project manager नहीं रहेगा, he's not going to be available there. So then things could become really difficult. So it's very important that, close the contracts once they are delivered. Very clearly write, saying that this is what is there. Project team need to be aware of legal complications in the contract, because, it's all about legality there. It's not, the friendship between Sanjeev and his friend who is working into the vendor company. It is the deal between two companies. So there is a legality applicable there. And you need to be very clearly aware of those legal aspects there. Then there are some teams to be played by team outside the project. You need to be writing very clearly. Sometimes there is a third party, there is some regulators who come into the picture there. So write it very clearly. Process of procurement should be kept in control by appropriate changes. So if there are any changes into a purchase order, if there is a change to be done in the purchase order, Sanjeev as a procurement guy cannot open that purchase order copy onto his laptop, make necessary changes and send it through the email. ऐसा नहीं होता. It doesn't work. It has to be a proper control. Someone will have to raise saying that I want to change this PO. Earlier it was said that the cost will be 75 paisa per piece. As per new thing, this is going to be 78 paisa per piece. 3 पैसे का फर्क per piece. This will have to be put as an approval. Then someone who has approved the PO will go ahead and say, yes, this is approved. After that, the PO amendment number 1 will be released, and that amendment number 1 will go to the vendor. This whole thing has to be done with that rigor. Remember, friends, paisa picture mein aata hai to you cannot be taking things casually. It becomes a big problem. It is, auditors, auditors are very particular about it, and they are particular not for wrong reason. There is a reason. Correct, Sanju?
correct, sir. Means for every transaction there is a backup. Currently, means for example, if I am posting any price in SAP, it will have a reference of QES, which is quotation evaluation system. So in that QES number, the entire emails, communication, negotiation with the vendor, who done the negotiation, which date, which time, what was the initial proposal, what was the final bid. So everything was
To be there.
attached in that quotation evaluation system.
Correct.
And
In
that
fact, I don't
quotation,
know how many of you people would be probably knowing this, but ये जो disciplinary action करके termination of the jobs होता है ना, they are heavily in the procurement department. Do you know this? Yes, technical guys.
Yes,
Then you
because
would be knowing it very well.
this
yes,
concept
yes,
legal
it is
complication.
very sensitive actually
गलत
department.
हुआ तो उसका यही नहीं है उसमें. उसमें गया आपका जॉब. That's the level of thing in, because यहाँ पैसा पिक्चर में आता है boss. So there is no other way than that. So
Yes,
the buyer can't say कि
actually,
गलती
sir,
हो गया मेरे से. वो
I
गलती नहीं
just want
है.
to point out,
हाँ
actually, we generally fear of going even for a tea with the vendors
हाँ
because the job is as such that anybody can blame anything. So
anything
it is
exactly.
very difficult.
Exactly.
So we
Even
cannot even go for a tea uh, even out, if I am outside the city, I would ask vendor to just arrange, if there is any lunch or anything has to do, just arrange in the premises itself. I cannot go outside. I have to hire my own
And
car.
also,
For example, so I have had Ola, and in late evening I am not getting any car, so I cannot use vendor car like that. So any, maybe
Yes,
somebody can
Vaibhav,
give
you
a
are saying
recording,
something?
can answer.
in fact, yeah, in fact, even Diwali, Dashera, New Year में कुछ accept भी करना, even diaries, we were not allowed to
You're
use,
not
even
allowed.
receive the diaries.
So
So
those
forget
are
about the
the
sweet
type
or
of
gift
things which
or
are there.
anything.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah,
sir.
Actually, HR sir, teams means like this is the festive season, so they started sending emails that anybody caught in any gifting kind of things, they will be expelled, they will be taken serious actions.
हाँ, वो वैसे ही रहते हैं उनका. Correct, exactly. Good. So that's what we
but
are saying. Basically,
as long as okay, you are not passing any undue favor, okay, in receipt of any Diwali gift or this thing. Sometimes I feel this is exaggeration,
हाँ,
but
but
yeah,
इसमें
every
ऑप्शन
company.
नहीं है वैभव. It is not
हाँ
only
हाँ
company, because ये exaggeration वाला नहीं करोगे तो it will, there are so many loopholes that it will become a problem.
yeah.
So, so कि जैसे वैभव डायरी
नहीं, हमने
लिखने
बहुत
में
follow किया है इसको.
कोई बुरी बात नहीं, बट अब डायरी को बढ़ते बढ़ते कितना टाइम लगता है, एंड देन थिंग्स बिकम डिफिकल्ट देयर. सो
हाँ हाँ
दैट्स व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से. लीगल compliance is there.
We
So
receive mail, sir, before Diwali
नहीं,
and all festivals.
इनफैक्ट मेरे पास तो
They will
मतलब
give the
मैं
list of the gifts which you can accept.
correct.
in my career in some couple of times in fact I had sent it back to the vendor that
अच्छा.
sorry, not accept, could not receive, accept, please take it back.
Correct. This process has activities. I am also supplier to Whirlpool. There I am registered supplier there. तो उसका हर साल में ईयर एंड वगैरह मेल आता है कि ये सब चीज आप नहीं दे सकते हो हमारे लोगों को, इट इज नॉट अलाउड करके. देयर पॉलिसी ऑफ एक्सेप्टेंस दे विल सेंड इट टू द वेंडर प्रोएक्टिवली कि
Oh,
तू वैभव को भेजेगा, वैभव बाद में सॉरी करके भेजेगा, वो चक्कर मत कर. यू कांट गिव दिस. दैट्स व्हाट is the level of thing. So what I'm trying to say, this legal complication थोड़ा याद रखना है. Very
and
important.
sir, one
Obviously, it
more,
might
this
result in
legal
question.
complications, every company will have their separate department, right, to handle the legal contracts and all.
Correct.
Because
Legally,
everywhere, country to country, it is the different rules and regulations, right?
exactly. So legality कहाँ picture में नहीं. Even HR department, whatever it does, there is a legality. Correct, Kiran?
Yeah.
But now what happens? Procurement एक जगह ऐसी है
Legal department will
कि
be
by
there in all the
compromising
companies.
legal,
Yeah,
things could
that
be
will be.
twisted very easily. प्रोक्यूरमेंट में ना लीगल का एक्सपेक्ट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. पैसा है यहाँ पे सीधा सीधा.
इसलिए
गलती से कुछ
project
कर
team
लेगा.
no need to take care, right? If legal team has to take care of all these things, correct?
No, no. I mean, so I mean, for you it could be a very innocent action, Kiran. It could be an innocent action, ना. तेरे लिए मैं बोलता हूँ, if you are on that particular position, one of the vendor will say that कि सर आपका जो प्रोडक्ट है ना वो रेडी है. ओके, वो प्रोडक्ट रेडी है, आप देखने के लिए शिमला में आ जाइए सर. मैं आपको आपका फ्लाइट टिकट ले लूंगा शिमला में. आप आप शिमला देखने नहीं आ रहे हो. यू आर कमिंग हियर टू सी द प्रोडक्ट. Look at it. It could be you are in trap, boss. You are in trap. If
Yeah.
you are very innocent about it, you said कि हाँ हम लोग क्या कर रहे हैं, and I'm just not spending anything. But it could be a simple bribing के अलग अलग तरीके हो सकते हैं, isn't it?
Yes.
So procurement and legal वो तो बिल्कुल they are hand in hand. They always keep an eye कि boss कहाँ fraud हो सकता है. But anyway, let's not spend too much time on that. That's how it is there. Procurement should be kept in control by appropriate reviews and audits. Very clear. Payment to the vendor as per the milestone included in this process. You cannot, as I told you, while vendor is responsible for 100 things to be done, you are responsible for that one thing at least. Paying him on time is your legal responsibility. In India, it is difficult to think, but in the Western world, a customer vendor can easily pull you into the court, saying that you didn't pay us on time. You delayed my payment by 1 week. Could be a case, could be a reason for पुलिंग द कस्टमर इनटू द कोर्ट. तो ये सब प्रॉपर करना चाहिए. Payment must be linked to the delivery of the services. Don't pay whole money as an advance or whole money based on the time. After the PO, एक महीने में दूंगा. Link it to the delivery, saying that once the delivery is done, there will be 50% inspection हो जाएगा, 20% more there, and remaining 30% after 1 month of it. Write it clearly in the contract and do it as per that. Contract changes should be done in the mutual understanding. Remember, it's called as a contract. And the moment we use the word contract, it is signed by both parties. Remember, the purchase order is not treated as a contract. Purchase order is not treated as a contract because it's an order given by the customer to the vendor. So how does that become contract? In most of the situation, you have realized that the vendor, you need to go back to them with the signed thing or through the email saying that, yes, I agreed. The moment vendor said that I agree to this PO, that becomes the contract. Contracts are never signed or agreed only by one team. It has to be both the parties. So contract, but if it is agreed by both, changes in that also need to be done by both. You cannot do it in isolation. These are all the inputs. All of that we have seen it. Contract change control system, as I told you, if you want to make any changes there, there's a whole lot of workflow. This is the purchase order. I want to make this change. So then there would be a printout saying that this was being read as earlier and now it is being read like this. So earlier it was said that the responsibility of you is to give it into our plant. Now we are reading it as it will be given to you and vendor will, the transporter will, which bhi changes hai. You need to properly follow the whole system there and approval. Financial management and AP accounts payable, because finally once the services or goods are accepted, it becomes due for payment. So you need to pay for that. And buying organization's code of ethics, very important. You need to circulate it saying that what are our code of ethics and these are what we'll be adhering to. Tools, expert judgment, obviously, for accepting the services, for paying the vendors, making changes into the thing, expertise are all required. When there is a dispute between, the vendor and the customer, it's called as a claim. There is a claim. Now the claim cannot be resolved between them, then become dispute and finally appeal. So that's where I was saying those three routes. First one is that, go ahead and negotiate it. If it doesn't work, ADR, alternative dispute resolution. And the last one is obviously the contract, the court. So you need to go only in that sequence. That's what PMI very clearly says. Running to the court for every small thing is not the thing what they advise.
Sir,
Ritesh.
sir, if the contract is closed, this is a question. If the contract is closed, okay, and after the few months, if these user parties understand that particular functionality which was supposed to be there, it is not operating. So in
Correct.
that case, he can claim to the bidder.
This, Ritesh, this is possible only if it is agreed in the initial contract. In the most of the situation, Ritesh, what they do is that they say that you will be supplying it to me, by whatever date, and there would be 6 months, post go live warranty, which means that is it has to be in the initial contract, Ritesh. If it was there in the initial contract, then at the end of 6, the moment you receive that whole material, the contract is not closed. Contract is said to be it is still open for the warranty part of it. But major payment ho jata hai. Sometimes 100% payment is done to the vendor because he has supplied everything. Now those 6 months, theoretically the contract is still kept live. Why? Because if there is any defect, the vendor has already agreed that he will support it. So you will have to do it in that situation. But Ritesh, if that you have not written in the contract, in the initial contract you have not written it, then you cannot demand it. I mean, so in the Ritesh, I don't know if you have heard this very funny phrase used in the shop कि चला तो चांद तक नहीं तो शाम तक ऐसा कुछ है
Sham
वो.
tak.
ऐसा कुछ है वो. Basically it said that तो फिर वारंटी वाली कोई बात नहीं है. Then I'm just not responsible if it doesn't work tomorrow. Why, Ritesh? It is because it is not written in the contract. But most of the situation, Ritesh, first thing, if it is a big purchase, customer will always put it into the contract. In fact, in most
नहीं
of
वो
the
या
situation, vendor himself will insist कि इसको करो, because he knows कल जाके फिर I mean it becomes a relationship, खराब हो जाता है उसमें. So they will include that price and it will be as per that only. But
Okay.
strictly speaking, if it is not there in the contract, Ritesh, you cannot force them.
Mhm.
And by the way,
and Sanjay,
याद रख
it
Ritesh,
will
this is a,
be
yes, Vaibhav.
sorry, you continue.
Yeah. So I was saying this is a standard British written by Americans, isn't it? Predominantly. PM is an
Mhm.
American. और अमेरिका में ना कौन किसको कोर्ट में खींच सकता है इसका कोई लिमिट नहीं है. See, Ritesh, I mean, the reason for which we find it slightly difficult is that if I give it to the thing in Indian context, we always say that कि यार you are always the answer है वो customer है यार, customer ने बोला तो even if it is a right demand, you need to fulfill is a typical psychology with which we start thinking, isn't it? Which is
Mhm.
obviously not the case in US. They will go ahead, I mean वो एक दोस्त के यहाँ पे चाय गर्म हो गई और तेरा हाथ जल गया तो दे पुल हिम इनटू द कोर्ट. I mean it's a very funny society in that sense. So obviously if it is not in the contract, vendor will say that sorry Ritesh, I can't do anything. I am ready to fix this. पैसा देना पड़ेगा तेरे को. I mean it's not uncommon in that whole thing. Yes, Vaibhav.
Correct.
No. Also, we have this called a performance bank guarantee (PBG).
Ah,
So we
guarantee.
always hold the 10% or 5% or whatever some percentage of the payment as a payment milestone to hold until the 1 year of warranty or 2 years of warranty is over, and then only we
You will
release. And
release
for
that.
that,
Hmm.
uh, vendor has to there is a system of this bank guarantees,
Correct.
advance bank guarantee, performance bank guarantees.
That's how it is there. Good. Then comes
Yeah.
agreed initial thing. If the parties themselves do not resolve, this we have seen it. Basically, court should be the last one, is what they says. Once you are receiving the things, you need to do multiple analysis of the performance of that vendor. Now, is he supplying on time? Is he supplying quality goods? Is he giving the required services? And all that thing need to be tracked properly, for the vendor. So eventually, this goes into his record. Next time when there is similar opportunity coming up, he will start getting the rating. In good old days, we used to go ahead and categorize the vendors as A, B, and C, which means, the top performance vendor are A category vendor, B category, and C category. And then eventually, for giving the purchase orders, there were criteria. So for example, if the total value of the deal is more than 10 lakhs INR, then it will be only A and B vendors can quote for that. C will not be able to do it. So a performance basis pe, you have a track record, and that track record will build his own file there to say that yes, this is a good vendor, this is not, a good vendor, and so on. Earned value management, that, AC, EV, earned value, plant value, AC, and all that things, CPI, SPI, all that calculations you can also do for the vendor's deliverables, so in that sense. And trend analysis to look into the performance of the vendor. How is that vendor progressing with time? Is his performance improving? Is it deteriorating? So all that thing. Inspection, once the goods or services are given, you need to do the inspection of the goods and service. Ensure that whatever PR you have raised, initial PR, whatever is there, is he supplying the things exactly as per that? So check that inspection and then go ahead and do the acceptance, because the people or the person who has raised that requisition is the only one who can approve the receipt actually. Even the head of the purchase department cannot go ahead and do the payment to a vendor unless he gets an acceptance from the person who has given that indent. The requirement who has given, he need to approve it. So that inspection is required there to ensure that what is there. And only on the basis of that, purchase department and finance department can pay the vendor. Audits are obviously required there, procurement audits. And as I told you, it's a sensitive thing about the money. So a lot of audits are there. And then finally, procurements are closed. As I told you, once whatever the suppliers, is supplying the goods or services or whatever, once they are done, it's a good practice to go ahead and close the procurement, document it very clearly to the minutes, saying that whatever you are supposed to be supplying is supplied, whatever we are going to pay is now done, and the PO is now closed. Close all the POs, so eventually there is no issue related to that. 6 month, Kiran actually moves into another place. 6 months down the line, someone, he is busy in his own work. So, Kiran, yaad hai kya wo last project mein you are doing there and there was a meeting and they promised that they will fix. So, kuch hua tha kya baat? No, Kiran may not remember. Close procurement will ensure that this confusion is no more there. This being a control process, work performance information is the common output there. And procurement document update. So this is how it is there. Takes care of, whole thing called as procurement. The last chapter in the thing is called as stakeholder. We have not completed communication, but we'll do this because this is more important as compared to communication. Communication has only, small 2 slides are important out of it. Otherwise, it's very simple. This one, on the other hand, is important. As I told you, people related, you are going to get 42% questions, which is 75 questions out of 180 are there. So, a lot of them could come from the stakeholder chapter. So, we'll take this here. Stakeholders are the people, group, or department. Those are having interest in the project success or failure. Remember, even the people who are interested in failure of your project, like your competitors, are also the stakeholder. Does it mean that you need to take care of them? Not necessarily. But if they are powerful, you cannot ignore them either. Because if they are interested in failure of your project, they are going to use all their best office, all their efforts to make your project fail. And you cannot go ahead and at the end of the project come back and tell the sponsor saying that my project failed because that guy completely registered every time he created problem. Boss, that was his role. He was a stakeholder who was interested in the failure. You as a project manager should have identified him on time. You as a project manager should have planned how do you engage with him. You have a choice to become a friend with him. You have a choice to poach some people from that competitor you had a choice to go ahead and upfront tell it to the customer saying that I suspect this guy might bring in the problem and I might handle him there. Whatever you want to do it, but you need to make an engagement. Once you plan the engagement, you need to do engagement like that. If you believe that this was a competitor who was going to create problem for you, and if you can't make a friendship with them, it's not necessarily you can do it. So go ahead and poach important people from him. That's your job. You should have planned it. Doing so is managing and monitoring. Is it really giving you the thing? Now, this was a negative example about thing, but there could be positive as well. There are some stakeholder, as I was saying, if you recollect that time, we were saying stakeholders, in the first chapter, they have explained this. There are someone called as the unaware stakeholders. The stakeholders who are not aware of the thing, they are impacted. But poor guys, they have no idea about this. Then there is something called as the neutral, the stakeholders who are aware, but they neither feel thrilled about the project nor feel depressed about the project. There is something called as the registering stakeholder, which means the people who are going to be against the project. Then something called as supporting, the people who are supporting the project, who are going to help the project to be successful. And the last one called as leading, basically leading stakeholders, which means these are the people who will try to make your project successful. They will work hard. They will work as hard as you. Whenever I say you, it means project manager. So those are the 5 categories there. Now, what I'm trying to say here is that once you identify, he is a neutral, let's say. There is a stakeholder who is neutral. You need to make the plan in such a way that he doesn't remain neutral, but he becomes supporting with time. It's not going to be just calling him into a meeting or making up a phone call and telling, saying that, sir, don't be neutral, be supportive. Let's do something. Maybe you'll have to send him the report. Maybe you'll have to invite him to the kickoff meeting. Maybe you'll have to have a once in 2 weeks a meeting with him. Maybe you'll have to call him for monthly meeting with the customer. Whatever. I don't know what all you need to do, but do that. Then manage it. Call him onto the dinner meeting, and not only that, monitor it. Because he was neutral, you were doing all that thing, you gave the party because he should become supportive. Go ahead and check whether he has become supportive. Otherwise, he will go ahead and have a nice party and forget everything. So you need to re-go and do the different way of engagement. So plan stakeholder engagement will change. So those are the overview of these particular processes. So there you go. First, some stakeholder we spoke, I think, impacted by the project either positively, negatively, and they will have a varying amount of influence. Some could be very influential people, some may not be so much there. Their power will also change. Some will be very powerful. Some of them may not have, hold so much of a power. Identification of stakeholders should be done as soon as possible. Quite a few of them will be done as a part of charter only. In the charter, some stakeholders' name will actually appear. But then down the line, you need to do the drill down and identify more and more stakeholders there. So communication is the key to manage stakeholder. One of the thing by which, people get involved is that you need to keep on updating them, keep on sending the updates to them so that, they are satisfied. If there are in conflicts, you need to resolve quickly, don't delay or don't sit onto the conflict saying that kuch to bhi ho jayega. And at the time, it should change with the thing. So it's ongoing. Trends and emerging practices, it says that you need to work with extended group of people. Sometimes you need not have, sometimes you work, often you speak with, the contact point given to you, with, the project manager from the customer side. And you, that was, the traditional way. And you might say that I am supposed to be. It is sometimes you need to go ahead and talk to your project manager's boss. Basically, you need to check what are his priorities. Sometimes you need to go ahead and talk to the people who are, the vendors. Very funny, but the vendors, customer. Now these are very common thing. You are supposed to be talking to the customer, because finally customer is giving you requirement thinking that. Does it mean that you should do something illegal? No, but it is trying to say that, this has become a part of you as a project manager in the latest days. Involving all team members in stakeholder identification, very good practice. Don't try to do everything yourself. Tailoring should be based on diversity. Why, stakeholder management, the way in which you will do for the software engineers or technical architect, solution architect, is going to be different as compared to vice president, senior vice president. These are also the stakeholder. The way in which you will handle these people is going to be different than this one. It does not mean these are not important. They are important, but they will need technical details. They will need operational details. These people will need project level details. They will need financial details. So you need to tailor your, customer management or the stakeholder management based on that. Consideration of agile and adaptive thing is stakeholder engagement very quickly, faster. In the daily scrum meeting, let the product owner be present because you need to do it more commonly. There is no time to go ahead and make take 1 week to make a big dashboard and send it to the customer. That's not the way. It is on a daily basis. Give more transparent and data. Identify stakeholder. It will take care of identifying the stakeholders, then analyzing their interest, involvement, interdependencies. There are relationships. Basically, your project manager is reporting to his boss. So while your project manager will expect something, his boss will expect something else. Your project, your counterpart project manager is there and their legal department is there. Now their legal department will expect something. They will have their security department. They will have their own expectations. So there are interdependencies. Try to drill down and see who are all involved there. It's quite possible. Down the line, you are trying to satisfy a person with whom you are dealing, and there is some other agency which last minute comes back and said, no, we don't agree to what you are doing so far. तो फिर चक्कर हो सकता है. So it helps plan to appropriate engagement. Based on that, it will help you to say that how do you engage with each of the stakeholder. This would, at the project charter, some of the stakeholder could be identified, as I told you. It is done periodically. It's not that all stakeholders will be identified on day one. Once project is going on, some new stakeholders, new phase, new deliverable, new outsourcing will come into the picture. And if that comes, the new set of stakeholders will come into the picture. So it might also occur when there are changes in the program or portfolio. And, because finally you are a project manager, you are part of a program. And if that program undergoes the change, आपका boss ही change हो जाएगा. If your boss changes, new stakeholder, new expectation, new engagement plan, whole set of things could trigger automatically. These are all the inputs which we know pretty well. Making identify stakeholder needs an expertise. You will have to gather the data, sometimes by questionnaire and survey, sometimes by brainstorming, sometimes by brain writing. Brain writing is, prepared or um, in that sense, the preparation is done before brainstorming may people come there with an empty mind and they start discussing. There is an advantage of it. You are completely free about of all the thought and you are very lateral, or very creative thinking there. But sometimes that becomes a problem. So what they do, they will circulate the agenda before that come prepared on this, and that's called as brain writing. So basically, you'll say that this is what you are going to discuss. They come prepared and then the discussion. So in brain writing, you might end up doing a more focused and quicker discussion as compared to brainstorming. So does it mean that every time it should be brain writing? Not necessarily. Does it mean that every time it should be brainstorming? Not necessarily either. You can do any of those things. Data analysis will need, the stakeholder analysis. How is their attitude? Are they positive, negative, neutral, unaware, supporting, leading? What is their interest? High interest, low interest, high power, low power, their legal rights, ownership, knowledge, contribution, all that thing. Document analysis. Quite often, when stakeholder identification happens, and if you are dealing with a big company, let's say TCS is taking some contract from Bank of America. Now, in Bank of America, there was, whatever, some Matthews, who was, the project manager. Now, when TCS guy went and met him, okay, can you please tell me who are all the stakeholders there? And what Matthew does, he actually give the organization structure document to TCS. And ये मेरा structure है, ये देख लो, you will come to know who are all involved here. You are supposed to be studying it. He will give the process document for Bank of America. These are our processes. Check who are all there. Identify with whom you want to talk. That's called as document analysis. Basically, reading some document and trying to do the process. Here, identify stakeholder. So for identify stakeholder, document analysis. Data representation could be done by power, influence, and all that, which is shown much better in this chart. It says that, I think we have spoken, but let me repeat quickly. High and low interest, high and low power. The people who are having high power and high interest will obviously be very actively involved. They will also be, if you make a small mistake, they will shout at you immediately because they will shout because they are powerful. They will certainly shout because their interest is high. But if you look at this guy, A, he is low interest and high power. The CFO, the guys into the customer organization. In most of the situation, these people could be low interest and high power. That daily report or weekly report, monthly report, whatever you are sending, this guy may not even bother to read about. It is simple because he does not have. I mean, he is managing 100 such projects. So तुम्हारा report पढ़ने के लिए this guy has no time. But he has a high power. Down the line, he can stall your project. He can stop your project. So keep him satisfied. Maybe if you are sending the report to these guys, or these guys send the report and once in a month pick up a phone and talk to him. And that time you go ahead and tell him, sir, last Monday I have 4 p.m. I have sent the report. Can you open that? On the 4th page I have mentioned that this. So you'll have to do that. I mean, not only sending it, you have to probably help him to read that as well. High power, na? High power, low interest. करना पड़ेगा. High interest, low power. These people are always starving for information. If you don't give the information, they get upset about it. And that's why high interest. And low power, so they can't come and trouble you. They will try to sit there and start guessing what is happening in your project. The best thing to satisfy is give them the information so that they don't guess what is happening in the project. You give them that update so that झंझट कम रहेगा. As I was, telling that example of Domino's pizza, when you put the order, why are they telling कि अभी ओवन में है, अभी यहाँ पे, and it is traveling? Because they keep informed. If you keep informed, those stakeholder will not bother you about it. So it's in your own interest that keep them informed about decent information. Then meetings for identifying stakeholders. Stakeholder register is an output here. What you create here is called as stakeholder register. And it's when you are saying it's not only the name and the phone number and designation. There's a lot of things. What is his location, what are contact details, what is his role, what are his major requirement, what are his expectations, is he internal or external, is he impactful, how impactful, influential, powerful, interest. So write as much details in the stakeholder register. If these details are there, while making the engagement plan with that stakeholder, it will be easier. Just by writing the name, designation, phone number, and email ID, you will not come to know who out of these I should go ahead and send a weekly report and who out of this I should be sending monthly report. That idea will come only when you have all these demographic information in the stakeholder register. Then comes change requests. Sometimes based on this, you might come across some change requests. Some new addition is required, some additional things are to be done, all that. And output. Then comes planning the engagement, having identified the stakeholder, plan the engagement. This is developing the approaches to involve, to ensure that their expectations, interest, and all that thing are taken care of. Identify the information needs, each stakeholder would have their own varied information needs, making one dashboard for whole project and send it to everything from senior vice president to the software guy will not make them happy. If it is too detailed, the senior vice president may not bother to read it. If it has only cost and financial thing, the software engineer will not be reading it. Different thing based on, their information needs are different and you need to plan it accordingly. Giving right feed of the information to right stakeholder is one of the important stakeholder engagement strategy. This plan need to be updated periodically because changes are common, isn't it? Sometimes the senior vice president might say that, that the report you are sending is really good about it, but, I get it only at the month end. I mean, can I get still a bigger, smaller summary once in a week? And in a month, you give me little more. It's a change. Update it. Your stakeholder engagement plan says now a very small report at the end of every week and little wider report at the end of month. I'm saying little wider. I'm not saying detail. Your senior vice president may not be interested in detail. These type of things are there. Project charter, project plan, all those are the inputs there. Agreements. Sometimes, some of the communication related requirement or stakeholder engagement requirements are coming out of the agreement. What does it mean in the contract itself? Sometimes the customer goes ahead and writes in the contract that there will be one meeting with the steering committee every month. ये इसमें अब आपका choice नहीं है. So Abhijit doesn't have a choice to go ahead and कि हाँ मैं एक महीने में करूँ या 2 महीने. It is written in the PO contract he has got. Now you need to do it there. So that's where this becomes an input there. Have you came across such deals? Where customer very clearly said that this is the frequency of the report or frequency of the meetings.
Yes, sir. We have weekly once.
हाँ और वो कंपल्सरी रहता है.
Yeah, mandatory. Yeah.
तो
It's the
yes,
part
वैभव?
of governance.
हाँ governance.
This we do as a part of governance model. Audible? This we do as a part of governance model, and that we decide something in the beginning of the project. It may not be exclusively mentioned in the contract, but as a part of the project kickoff and all, we do mention, okay, at what level we are meeting at what frequency.
Correct. So either do it as a part of thing, but in some situation, the reason for which I was giving my voice, why agreement is an input. Some stakeholder engagement strategies are coming out of the agreement itself. आपने बोला अभी इसमें, I mean, sometimes I have seen project manager coming back कि हर महीने की मीटिंग में क्या डिस्कस करेंगे यार, आदमी को बोलना क्या है, but it may not be your choice. It is possible it is written into the contract. जाके तेरे को ना वो सैंडविच और चिप्स खा के आना पड़ेगा if that is part of the contract. Are you getting my point again? So
Yes.
some of the activities are like that. Establish the risk thresholds. Sometimes stakeholders are too panicky. They are, they are एक दिन report late हो गया, they will make a big shout. So understand them very clearly. OPAs and all that. Expert judgment, obviously making stakeholder engagement plan needs an expertise. Not, you can't go ahead and tell, that fresher MBA joined your project and say to जरा बना ले यार मेरे को time नहीं है. It doesn't work. It's not an expertise. Data gathering is required. For example, benchmarking, which means, for the similar project, for SAP implementation project, typically what is the governance model used? Go ahead and use it and make the benchmark accordingly. So basically, you decide your engagement policy, which is benchmarking on similar project for the same customer. For Bank of America, how is the governance typically implemented? Go ahead and copying it there. Now, using the word copying there doesn't seem to be good, so benchmark it against that. Then comes data analysis, assumption and constraint, and root cause analysis. If there are escalations, why they are happening, do the root cause analysis and say that it is happening because the project manager from the customer end is not getting periodic updates. That's the root cause analysis. So go ahead and make changes into your SEP, stakeholder engagement plan. Finally, this is all about stakeholder engagement plan. Making appropriate decisions is required. You need to do stakeholder analysis. As I told you, who is negative, who is positive, who is supporting, who is leading, who is resisting, who is neutral, to do that thing. So all that decision making. Data representation could be done in the terms of mind map. Mind maps could be very easily used while making. For example, if it is a three-party involved project, so it is you. Let's say it is your own organization. So your organization. It also has the customers organization. I'm explaining you mind map for stakeholder engagement. And then there is vendor, third party. There could be multiple vendor as well, because it's not that everything you do. So now you go ahead and do a double click on the customer side. Customers management will come into the picture. Customers project manager will come into the picture, and customers technical guys will come into the picture. In your organization, your legal department will come into the picture, your finance department will come into the picture, your resource department might come into the picture from the vendor. A project manager, keep on digging it down. Everything you go ahead and keep on making the pieces. If you do it that way, you might end up covering all the people who are involved into project. That is mind map. Mind map is basically visually represented. Keep on drilling down there. Now, the stakeholder engagement matrix is explained here in this chapter. It says that these 5 things, as I told you: unaware, resistant, neutral, supportive, and then stakeholder 1, 2, 3. C is the current environment, and D is the desired one. So, he's now, once he has done all the first cut interview identification, he realized that stakeholder 1 seems to be unaware of the project. And for my project to be successful, he need to be supportive. Then how will this movement happen? This movement will happen with SEP, stakeholder engagement plan. That's the way in which these are management tools. So nothing great. You can make it very easily, but actually implementing is not that straight. And meeting the stakeholder. And what do you create is a stakeholder engagement plan, is a sub-component of the project plans. It includes strategy, plans, steps, could review meetings, communications, what you are planning with the stakeholder. All that thing will be all your strategies about how do you engage with them. Then, having done the plan, it's the time to manage the engagement. Having made the stakeholder engagement plan, is the time to manage that engagement. And it will be, what communications you are going to do it, how are you going to handle the issues, and how do you reduce the resistance from the stakeholder and get the cooperation, from them. So, and getting the periodic commitment by involving them into the thing, putting the minutes of meetings, circulating, tracking action item, so many things. One of the very important job of project manager is to manage stakeholder engagement. ये काफी अजीब लगेगा. Technical guys very often miss this angle of the project management. Are you getting my point? Yes. This is, technical guys very often think that if I deliver a brilliant technical solution, customer is going to be happy. But quite often it is all about how do you manage the engagement. If you manage the engagement, your project will, be successful, and sometimes a very good successful technical project, because you have not managed stakeholder, could turn or could be marked as failure. Are you getting my point here?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
It's very common. and not ये अभिषेक, it is not everyone's cup of tea, है ना?
Right. It's only
कुछ
for
लोगों को ये
project manager.
आता है, कुछ लोगों को नहीं आता है, so इसको
Correct.
कुछ नहीं कर सकते. Very often, Abhishek, if you have grown completely from the technical background, you could be little weak here. I'm not saying it is always, but
नहीं,
sometimes.
और
Yes, Vibhav.
और मेरा पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस इस मामले में ऐसा है कि मैंने बहुत बार ऐसे लोगों को देखा है प्रोजेक्ट में, खासकर स्पेशली, इट्स नॉट ऑफेंडिंग एनीवन, द folks from the QA, quality assurance, okay, and different process QA, IT QA and so on. अगर आपने उनको इम्पोर्टेंस फील नहीं करा है कि हाउ इम्पोर्टेंट यू आर, तो दे विल बी ऑलवेज फाइंडिंग अपॉर्चुनिटी टू टू स्टॉप यू और टू मेक अ ट्रबल फॉर यू इन द प्रोजेक्ट. जब anything comes for the review and approval, they will be important, but
Exactly.
continuous communicating with them, feeling them they are so important, yes they are important, but sometimes maybe you have to make them feel also. But yeah, I found QA is the most difficult stakeholder to manage
Now
or
this
to
depends on the
in any
pocket,
project.
Vaibhav. Different
Yeah,
people,
yeah, yeah.
different, but QA में क्या होता होगा, I will tell you. These characteristics are there in all the people, Vaibhav.
Yeah,
But क्या होता है,
yeah,
QA people, often we people end up ignoring them because we underestimate their power. They are powerful
yeah,
in
yeah,
that sense. तो हम लोगों को वो
yeah.
कस्टमर के साथ ऐसा क्यों नहीं होता, माने कस्टमर में भी see these attitudes will be there, but you will never ignore him ना, because you are very careful about him. हम लोग कभी कभी क्वालिटी वालों को वही वी थिंक कि यार ये तो अपना कलीग है, वो क्या व्हाटएवर, ये कोई यूज द थिंग है, ये क्या जीवन लेवल का आदमी है यार. ये जीवन लेवल का क्या कर सकता है ये वैभव को बाद में
हाँ,
पता चलता है वो.
हाँ, हाँ, नहीं नहीं, मैं बहुत बार पता चला चला मेरे को लाइफ में. मैं तो टेबल के ये साइड और टेबल की वो साइड, दोनों साइड में काम किया है, तो
So
मुझे पता
good.
है.
So good.
आई वर्कड एज ए कस्टमर, वर्कड एज ए वेंडर, बोथ.
So manage risk, identify and manage risk in stakeholder engagement, and capture and resolve any issues. And when you are managing, obviously, some of them, as you are saying, that will be unhappy. If they are unhappy, you need to, see what can you do about their happiness. So it's a very simple thing, not many tools and technique. As a process, ye manage stakeholder. I mean, if you look at it here, if I go ahead and go with, my main chart here, ये जो है ना, ये manage stakeholder engagement, this one, control stakeholder engagement, manage communication, control communication. These are easiest process for studying and giving answers in PMP. Let me repeat, very easy or studying and giving answers in the PMP exam. But in real project, a crux hai. The project managers who are able to manage communication and manage stakeholders successfully, at times, even if he is slightly weaker in terms of technology, doesn't matter. He will survive. So, what I'm saying, try to understand. When I'm on this slide, I'm saying it is very easy. What is easy? Answering those questions in PMP is easy. Doing stakeholder management is not an easy job. So let's be clear about it. Let's not underestimate, the thing there. That's why, we are going fast because answering this in PMP is easy. It's not so easy. Expert judgment, obviously, as I told you, you need to be master about it. Lot of interpersonal skills are required. I mean, when customer is unhappy, it's not that he will come back and write a mail. There are few customers, when they are unhappy, they will pick up a phone and shout, saying that, why, what are you doing? But there are so many customers who will not even do that. They will do few things which can put Vaibhav in deep shit. Are you getting it? वो डेंजरस लोग है ना. If he shouts, it's good, you will come to know. If he doesn't shout, then how do you manage stakeholder engagement? Is that communication skills? Unless you are a good communicator, which needs conversation, not only in the conference room giving presentations, but also in the coffee table. And you should be having issue identification, meetings, progress reporting. All those things are communication skills required. Interpersonal team skills, you know, conflicts are very common. Cultural awareness. Sending a mail to someone as dear Mr. So and so could be offending. Could that be? If I write a mail to dear Vaibhav, you never know. Vaibhav might feel offended for that. इन सम कल्चर्स ऐसा होता है, तू जाके हाय वैभव लिख दे, वो नाराज हो जाएगा, आई डोंट नो, इट डिपेंड्स. Cultural awareness, it's all about cultural awareness. Then comes negotiations, observation and conversations, an ability to look into his eyes and say that where is he heading. Political awareness, very important. You need to be politically aware. Marking someone in the CC list or 2 list makes a difference. Some people may not bother to read a mail if it is not marked exclusively to them. So these awareness need to be there. Then comes ground rules. Some of the ground rules are basically setting up with the stakeholders saying these are the things which we will follow, and do it in the beginning. Typically, I have worked with some of the customer organizations where using abusive language was part of their native culture. They were never thinking that I am doing something like that. You need to set up a ground rules. इनके boss आपको नाराज है, if you are not happy with someone, you have all the rights to show the displeasure, but you can't abuse him. You cannot go ahead and say कि, for example, if saying someone said कि तेरे को job पे रहना है कि नहीं है, do you want to be in the job or not? Now, this could be abusive thing for someone else. Someone else might say, हाँ ये तो, I mean, this guy starts the day by saying this sentence, यार उसको मत seriously लो. Not necessarily, na. The ground rules are that. Going ahead and setting it, these are the things will. So, for example, some of the things that whenever you are having a doubt, you should always pick up the phone, talk to the project manager. Don't talk to any junior guy. Set it as a ground rule. You cannot stop him from picking up phone and talking to the developer or the tester. But this ground rule, if it is set, you will go ahead and say, sir, good you spoke to the tester, but what he says is not right. I don't agree to that. Because ground rule very clearly said, if you want anything, you should not talk to me. अब वो जाके क्या बोला, अब तुम्हारा प्राइवेट बात है, तुम जो करने करो, आई डोंट केयर अबाउट इट. So setting up that ground rules is very important. Meetings are required for managing the stakeholder engagement, for making decisions, for issue resolutions, lessons learned. Kick-off meeting, very important, to ensure that there is a buy-in. All the people are, in psychologically involved into the sprint planning meeting, status updates meeting. These are all there, and sometimes change requests because customers want something different. Some stakeholders say that I want more frequent meetings. Someone says that I want more detailed report. Someone says that I want a summary report. Someone says that I should be marked as a CC into that. All those, could be the change requests there, which will make the changes in the thing. And finally, controlling, monitor stakeholder engagement to take care of tracking. As I told you, you are giving the dinner party to someone every, month, or you are inviting for the team's dinner meeting one of the, customer representative. Monitor ki bhaiya दारू पी के चला गया, कुछ कर नहीं रहा आगे में. So, what I mean is basically, you are doing that engagement as it is done, but is it really giving you required effect? Is his resistance reducing? Is he remaining updated about it? All those, whatever are your objectives in doing that, are they meeting? If it is not meeting, you need to do something different. You'll have to tailor the engagement. No specific tools and techniques here. EF, OEF, analyze the data, alternative analysis, root cause analysis, stakeholder analysis, all those we know pretty well. Making appropriate decisions to, go ahead and involve more with someone, less with someone, more frequent, more detail. And then same that C and D wala chart, unaware and all that. For doing that, you need communication skills, which include feedback, providing the feedback to the people, and an ability to give the presentation. Very important thing, not only for project management, I would say for your corporate life. This essential part of your corporate life. So presentation is absolutely an essential thing. Interpersonal and team skills like actively listening, cultural awareness, leadership, networking with the people. It's not the technical networking, but with the people, and meeting. So in short, this was that last chapter, except for communication, which I have not done, but it's a good time to ask any question if you have, while I am, trying to open the communication chapter. So it's a very small thing, only two important tools, which are there. I will open it, but it's a good time to think of any questions if you have, and feel free to ask it now.
Sir, I have a question. So
Yes,
what kind of things are covered in alternative analysis in which comes under stakeholder analysis?
correct. Now these things will always change, है ना? So Anushri, just to abhi to I am there in the classroom, so I will give you the answer. But if you are not able to, get that down the line, or kahin pe aapko, when you are reading it, you came across some doubt there. Okay. So how to check it? I will show you that process first, and then I will also answer your question about alternative analysis on the stakeholder. What did you say? Control stakeholder or monitor stakeholder? I think in the monitor stakeholder you asked, correct?
That's handling
Correct, ना?
stakeholder
So हम
last,
लोग पहला चीज
right?
ये देखेंगे कि what is PMI saying there, and then I will explain it to you. तो PMI ये इसका आंसर कैसा ढूंढना है, that's what I am showing you, Anushri, first, ना? So how do you want to see how alternative analysis is done for monitor stakeholder engagement? Alternative analysis is a tool, so we need to type 13.4.21. 13.4, because this is the process. 0.2.1, because it will take you to the tools and techniques here. Okay, now look at it here. He's saying, oh, okay, he has not. Alternate can be used for evaluate options to respond to the variance in the desired results of the stakeholder engagement. अब ये इतना ही आंसर देगा. Now what does that mean? Now I will have to give the answer, Anushri. Now what happens here, what he is trying to say is that, let's say, Anushri, you are sending a monthly report to the stakeholder. Now scenario based question, I will tell you, Anushri, how can they ask? They will say that, you are sending a detailed report to the to so many stakeholders there, and you have seen getting good results there. But one of the stakeholder is, in the review meeting, actually stood up and asked the question saying that, what is the current progress of the project, Anushri? So he asked the project manager saying that, what is the current project? To your surprise, you are sending the report and it has all those details there. In the meeting, you asked saying that, did you read that particular, have you received? He said that I have received it. But did you read it? Where is that? Yes, Apura, they will give all twisted thing. And then they will say what could be the problem. Now look at it here, coming back to your question about alternative analysis. What does it mean, Anushri, is that the report you are sending to him is either too detailed, which this guy is not ready, or it is too summary, he needs more detail. Either it is too frequently, he is not reading it, or it is too infrequently, you need to send it more frequent. Based on that text, you'll have to say that this is what is the issue. And alternative analysis is what? इसको सिर्फ sending report is not good enough. The alternative is to send the report and have one call in a week. Now that's an alternative analysis. Sending him a report through the email is not working. Giving him the login access to the project repository is an alternative. These are alternatives. About monitor stakeholder engagement. So are you getting this, Anushri?
Yes, sir. So if we give access to project repository, again, like it is just that the stakeholder will be having access to all the reports and everything, or anything apart from that as well?
Now it depends on the system, Anushri. In the systems there are something called as a user profiles. There are profiles. So certain profiles are created which will only get an access to certain set of reports. He may not, for example, if he goes ahead and try to see the cost report from your side, he will not be able to see it. Those type of user profiles, your system in first place should support the facility to create such user profile, and then add that user to that profile. The moment you add it, all the set of filtered reports you will be able to see there. तो वो टाइप का एक्सेस आपको देना पड़ेगा. But it all depends, Anushri. It depends if your organization is using that tool, that type of thing there. If it is
Okay,
not
sir.
there, तो
Got
फिर
it.
आपको और कुछ करना पड़ेगा, correct?
Got
Maybe
it.
you publish it into a central place and periodically keep and give the access folder access to that. In that situation, putting information there will be your PMO job, and that guy will access. तो ये अल्टरनेटिव है शायद. This is just an example, isn't it? One of the example is that sending mails is not working. So send him the mails, but also pick up a phone and call him once. That's an alternative, correct?
Okay, got it.
Sometimes, Anushri, did you notice one thing is that you end up dealing with a very operational level guy, and whenever there are decision related thing comes, he comes back and said कि अनुश्री ये तो मैं नहीं बोल सकता ना, मेरे को बॉस से बात करना पड़ेगा. Then he talks to the boss. Now, if this happened three times, Anushri, what will be the alternative analysis?
Directly talk to the boss.
Now, may not be directly, but I would say in addition to this guy, also talk to the boss. है ना, कम से कम. That making, क्योंकि आप उसको लूप में नहीं रखती थी. You are thinking that if I am telling this guy, that's what I am supposed to be. That is not
Right.
working. तो वो बॉस को भी सीसी में रखो. और if you are calling this guy every weekend, maybe call that boss और उसको, it's very funny, Anushri, but when your vendors, do they send you Merry Christmas is nothing else but stakeholder engagement plan है. आपको समझ में आ रहा है वो? Are you getting this?
Yes, sir.
They don't send that greeting to everyone. It is a stakeholder engagement plan. It's a harsh reality of life, isn't it? किसको डायरी भेजना है और किसको सिर्फ ग्रीटिंग भेजना है, स्टेक होल्डर एंगेजमेंट प्लान है वो, है ना?
Right.
है ना? और किसको मिठाई भेजना है. सो इफ इट इज अलाउड, ऑब्वियसली. So that's what is there. But good, that was an interesting discussion. So now coming back to the last in the class called as a communication. When I am saying last in the class, it is certainly not least in the project. It is last in the class as well as in the PMP. Answering question on communication is fairly easy, but people related hai to thoda twist might come. You would be able to answer this fairly quickly, easily, without much of a problem. Okay, but remember, again I am repeating, answering PMP question on communication is easy. Doing communication in the project is the crux of it. Not necessarily everyone is good at it. Some people are good at it, some people are not so good at it. If someone is not good at it, he might suffer because of that poor communication, in spite of the fact that he is delivering the project brilliant technically, he's doing it on time, he's doing on budget, everything is okay. But communication nahi hai to you might face the things there. All about developing the artifacts to generate the data, information, and circulate it to appropriate people. In first place, define the strategy. What all data you want to generate, store, how do you want to present it, what reports you want to make. Manage the communication, send that report periodically, take the feedback and so on, and then monitor the communication. Whatever report you are sending, are people reading it? After reading it, whatever you are thinking should happen, is that happening? You are, as I was saying, giving an example to Anushri, saying that she was very keeping one particular stakeholder very satisfied because she thought that working with him is good. But when there was a question related to some decision, this guy always was going to his boss. So monitor communication said, boss, it's okay. We'll continue with this guy, but I will also keep that person along with this. So maybe I will send once in a month report. Maybe once in a month I will pick up a phone and talk to him, saying, sir, are you okay? I mean, comfortable. So that down the line problem, that is called as more. So plan whatever is doing, plan whatever you want to do it. And after doing, is it becoming effective? Is plan, manage, and monitor. Only two important things are there. So that we'll see, and then that will be the end. Communication is exchange of information. Communication is when it is happening, it could be written, it could be spoken, which means verbal, it could be formal, it could be informal, through the gestures. Lot of thing on the gestures. One of the study says that, what you actually say has a 32%. Your words have the value of 32%, and 68% of what you say is coming out of something called as a body language or gesture. Body language. So if I say yes, it means 32. The way in which I say yes is 68%. And that is what he's saying. So communication is happening through the gestures as well. Through media, through choice of words, communication may happen by sending the mail or report or meeting presentations. Social media, these days, it's common. You can't stop people from publishing their WhatsApp statuses, putting some project related celebration pictures onto the Facebook. Is that a crime? It's not a crime, but it is still sending some communication to someone else. Someone who is his friend under the Facebook might read something odd out of that. A cake cutting ceremony may say be, he might end up reading something which you don't want. So remember, this communication does happen. 90% of the time, project manager is spending on communication. This is an international, study which say that 90%. So remember this number by heart. In your project, you might be doing 50%. In some project, it would be 98. Don't worry too much around it. More important is that PMI's belief is that 90% of the time, project manager spends in doing communication. It could be internal, external, formal, informal, upward, downward, and these two parts will be explained in one of the diagram which is coming in 2-3 slides down the line. Then some key concepts are there. They have given these 5 C's. Remember them by heart. Don't worry too much about the thing. It said that correct grammar and spelling, concise expression and elimination of excess words. Because you might get a question. They will give you a long paragraph and they said why was this happening? Maybe some report was sent yes of lamba and then they said customer raised it saying that I just don't get any update on time. Now, why is this happening? You need to be, and they will say that why is that not happening? Maybe one of these things there. To support the PM, need to have a communication skill like a listening. Listening is said to be a communication skill, by the way. Very often we say that speaking is a communication skill, listening is not, but not the reality. Active listening is very important. Awareness of the culture is very important. As I told you, saying hi to someone, dear to someone, could mean different in different geographies, different regions, and so on and so forth. So good to be aware of what culturally is acceptable in the given thing. Doing the shake hand with a lady colleague might be common in India, but not necessarily in all over the region there. So you need to be aware of it. Identify the stakeholders' engagement, expectation, and so on. Trends or the latest trends here are social media communication. As I told you, communication happening through social medium, you might call it as unofficial, by the way, but still communication does happen. So you might as well call it as unofficial, but it does happen. So be careful about it, rather than saying that this is illegal. You need to be aware what will, and then how do you prevent from that, Tailoring is based on, types of stakeholder. The type of communication you need to do it for internal stakeholder is going to be different, external is going to be different, and so on. How they are geographically distributed, and so on. And agile may, you need to do more frequent communications. Plan communication management, doing the communication plan to be based on stakeholder, end objective, and so on. These are all the inputs which are well known. There is only one important tool here, which I want to explain it to you. All these are well known to you. Communication, this is removed from PMBOK currently, but it could still be, sometimes in mock paper, they come up with saying number of potential channels. The formula for that is n into n minus 1 divided by 2. What they are trying to say, friends, is that if in your project there are 5 stakeholders, A, B, C, D, and E. If these are the 5 stakeholders there, how many wires could be used to connect them? For example, A will talk to B, C, D, and E. B is already connected to A. He will talk to C, D, and E. C is already connected to A and C. So D and E. D will only talk to E. So if you go ahead and count these things, it comes with n into n minus 1 divided by 2, which is 5 multiplied by 4 divided by 2, which is 10. So these are the 10 connections there. This is called as number of channels. Now, why is this formula? They say that you need to be aware that these are all the possible, links there. you as a project manager need to say that this is valid, this is invalid, this is an official communication, this is not an official. You need to be very clearly saying that how frequently they will meet, what format they will meet, and all that. So that's what is number of potential channels. Then departments involved in the project, legal requirement, all those things you need to consider, and based on that decide which communication is useful. Very common thing, technologies like shared portal, video conference, audio conference, you are all familiar in using them. Communication model has 3 layers, and that's what he's trying to show here. This is the only diagram which is important here. It says that, when there is a communication happening, there is a encoding, sender encodes it. When you are speaking about it, you are encoding it. And then you are transmitting it, and there is a noise at the receiver end. Remember, this noise is not the physical noise. It is all about his previous background and so on. The receiver will decode it and understand something. When he is acknowledging, there is noise at your end as well. You are also reading it in. See, you always have you always have an interpretation. When someone comes back and asks me a question. Let's say Kiran is very good friend of mine, and he asked me a question, saying that ki, sir, ये कैसा करना चाहिए? Now, if Kiran is very good friend of mine, I will always look at that question from that light. I will say that ki when Kiran is asking, it's going to be really a genuine question put to yoga. It could be other way around as well. There could be someone else about whom I always think कि यार ये आदमी ना हर बार problem आता. Now, if that person asks a very genuine question, the same one which Kiran asked me, but I might actually interpret कि लो और एक problem किया. That is called as noise. Noise is that thing. So what they are trying to say, understand this thing. When you are doing communication, that there is noise at the receiver's end. Similarly, when you are listening someone, there is a noise. Be aware of it as a project manager. Then what are some of the noises? These are there. Look at it. Generational. A young man and an old man. When they are talking, there is a generational difference between them. What young guy says and what old guy says, there is always a generational thing. I think we should be little conservative. That's what if the old man says, the young man may not listen to that exactly what he mean. He will listen it completely different. That noise is there. Similarly, national. If you are from America, you are from Britain, if you are trying to talk each other, there are going to be some noises. Professional discipline. As Vaibhav was saying, वो quality वाले लोग. It's a discipline, it's a professional discipline. The moment you go ahead and say that कि हाँ ये तो हो जाएगा. Now look at it. This is what Vaibhav was saying कि ये आराम से कर लेंगे ना. Now that quality guy, if he is a quality guy, he thought कि Vaibhav is not serious about this process. तो ना problem क्या होगी? Then comes gender. Gender obviously plays an important role in understanding the thing. So this is the only thing. So remember few words here: encode, decode. You go encode, decode, transmit message, and noise. These are the words, if you understand, are good enough. That's it in this chapter. There is nothing more. There are a type of communication, push communication, which means you are sending the mail to multiple people. Pull communication, publish the report in one place, give the URL, and ask the people कि यहाँ से आप ले लो report. Now, where to use push communication, where to use pull communication, you need to be careful. Appropriate stakeholder, you need to do only push communication. You cannot do pull communication there. These are things: interpersonal communication between two individuals, 3 to 6 people, small group, public communication, all hands meet and all that. Or, they call it as all hands meet, or, whatever. There are multiple names, town hall meet and all that. Mass communications and network and social computing. Communication happening through the Facebook pages, the WhatsApp statuses, and so on. So same thing, interpersonal skills, all that, political, cultural, because all the tools and techniques you have done it already. Stakeholder agent was C and D wala, that diagram is what he's saying. Meetings. Output is a communication management plan. In managed communication, you are doing that same sender receiver model, choice of words, informal, formal, nothing new. This all process is same. There is nothing new here. All that you will find very familiar. Geographical distribution, because that is, that will decide how communication is effective. shared portals, project teams. This whole slide is copy, isn't it? We have seen it. Push, pull, interactive. Because whatever is the tool for plan is the use for manage. Same non-verbal presentation. These are all the skills required for a good project management. Project reporting is a new thing which says, for doing the communication, you need to do the reporting. Sending the reports periodically, different formats. Sometimes it's a face-to-face presentation. Sometimes it's a video conferencing. You need to plan it and do it. Project management information systems might help you to prepare your report, prepare your dashboard, make a presentation, make the graphs. All that things will always be, possible with a good system there. For doing communication, all these things are required. Conflict management, cultural awareness, networking. The last one, the monitor communication to ensure that whatever you are doing is actually meeting the required expectation. It is fulfilling the expectations. Nothing new. All the things are same for these three processes. Expert judgment, PMIS, just now we have seen it, data representation, wahi C and D wala. Current engagement, desired engagement, interpersonal skills, work performance data and change. So in short, that was the last thing in the class as well as this particular part of the project. Any questions before I stop sharing the project? Or I will stop sharing, that's not a problem. Any questions, friend?
Sir Mahesh here.
Ah.
What all techniques we do use to resolve the inter-team conflict?
Inter-team conflicts. Now, what happens here is that, on the conflict management, somehow, Mahesh, they have been little silent about it. They have not very clearly shown what are those conflict management techniques you should be using. Or did they? I think they have used those techniques, that withdraw or avoid. Do you remember that? वो देखेंगे हम लोग. So I will show it to you. That is the PMI's answer. Obviously, it's always a PMI's answer. Not necessarily in real life. Only those could solve your problem. So let's see. Withdraw इसी में है शायद. हाँ. Conflict management techniques. ये देखिए. Is it visible? Did I share the
No, sir,
screen?
it's not visible.
Oh, sorry. I didn't. I should have shared the screen. Look here. You can see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it says that these are the tactics there, withdraw or avoid. What does it mean? Don't get involved into that. Tell them, say, that, I am too busy. This type of style of conflict. There are two people coming to Mahesh and they said, Mahesh, we are having a problem. This guy says that, development is going to take 15 days. And I say that, why does it 15 days? I want it in 5 days. And Mahesh, we are not having any agreement. Please, you are my boss, you solve it. Now, if that is the conflict, Mahesh, one of the style Mahesh can use is withdraw or avoid, which means, Friday में कितना busy रहता हूँ. I am very busy. I need to make the dashboard report. यार, you people sit together and solve it. यार. This style is called as withdraw or avoid. Is this good, Mahesh? Probably no. But sometimes this is the most appropriate way of handling conflict. Are you getting this point?
Okay.
Okay. Now, second one. ये एक हुआ. This is not necessarily right. Second, smooth or accommodate. In smooth or accommodate, what do? You ask both of them or listen to both of them. And this guy, when he is saying that, I think 15 days are required. Last time, Mahesh, when we did it, we tried to do it in 12 days, but it took 13, 15 days. So I'm just putting one more day and 15 days. While saying this, Mahesh क्या करता है? I think बराबर है. What you say is right, यार. बराबर, perfect. Then you turn to second guy who was saying it should be done in 5 days. Why are you saying that? See, customer is pressing so much. How can we actually spend 15 days in doing this? Can't do it. Oh, okay, what you say is right. करता कुछ नहीं है महेश. He listen to both of them and say that कि हाँ देख लेंगे. It is nowhere different than this. The only difference here is that you are showing that you are involved and let it go. Is it good style, Mahesh? Probably no. Is it useful sometimes? Yes. Correct, Mahesh?
Yes.
Compromise or reconcile? You go ahead and say, ठीक है यार, कस्टमर आई नो कस्टमर होता है तू, हमें 15 दिन बराबर है तू, बट अब कुछ नहीं कर सकते यार, 5 दिन में करना पड़ेगा मेरे को. compromise or reconcile is one of the things. Sometimes you need to use these as well. Force or direct. Nothing doing. I am telling you, this has to be done in so many days. That's force or direct. And last one is called as collaborate or problem solve. Go to the root cause, saying that check why do you need 5 days or why do you think 15 days? Go to the root cause and sort it. This is best way of solving the conflicts, but not necessarily every time this should be there. If you use this style every time, Mahesh, you will use this style for even doing saying that ki today afternoon when we are going for the team meeting, should we go to a South Indian thali restaurant or Punjabi thali? इसके लिए तू collaborate or problem solve. If you do it, you are going to waste time. Is that correct?
Yes.
There could be a conflict on पंजाबी थाली लेना है या साउथ इंडियन थाली लेना है. उसमें ये इसमें से एक स्टाइल यूज कर that is better, Mahesh, for you. I gave
Yes,
a
sir.
very funny example. I mean, it was a very funny example.
Mhm.
But in real project life also, there are few things where it is good to use any of these things. Some of the things, Mahesh,
Right.
also depend on which one works with you as a natural style. Because Mahesh
Okay.
Kumawat, as a person, has a natural style towards one of them. So, if I am using this methodology every time, if you start using it, you might fail there. Correct, Mahesh?
Right.
There are few things which are natural to you. If it is there, then obviously you would be more successful using it. PMI as usual doesn't give an answer saying that कि यही use करो, but PMI very clearly said these are the 5 different styles to handle the conflict. Okay, does that make sense?
Got it. Got it, sir.
Good, that's an interesting question. Yes. Anyone else?
सर वो पेज नंबर बताएंगे सर आप उसका कौन सा है
हाँ,
चैप्टर
वो
वाइज
पेज मैं इसलिए नहीं दे रहा था कि बिकॉज द पीडीएफ पेजेस विल चेंज, फॉर द ऑफिशियल डाउनलोड इट विल चेंज, बट मैं उसको बनाता हूँ, मेरे को बैठ के बनाना पड़ेगा, रितेश. आई विल मेक इट एंड सेंड इट टू यू because normally these changes when you download it, their current versions of the PDFs are different, and the version what I am sending it to you is a cracked version there. So uska page number I can give it to you if you are going to use the same PDF.
we are using your version only
Correct.
what you have been shared.
मैं भेजता हूँ.
Printing PDFs, right? Printing page numbers, right?
हाँ, अभी तेरे को पीडीएफ में पढ़ना है तो फिर पीडीएफ के पेज नंबर अलग है. देयर इज अ डिफरेंस ऑफ वॉट एवर 25 और 30
अच्छा
नंबर्स. सो पेज
अच्छा
16 तो मैं बोलता हूँ ना, इट्स अ पीडीएफ पेज. द प्रिंट पेज फॉर दैट इज 25. सो दे आर डिफरेंट. आई विल मेक अ चार्ट. आई मीन इट्स नॉट अ बिग डील.
Sanjay sir,
यस, अभिषेक.
sir, is it possible if we can download this slide? Actually, as we are reviewing these slides since
हाँ
long,
हाँ,
so
आई
it
विल
would be
सेंड इट.
helpful if we can,
Yeah, I will
And
send it.
sir,
Yesterday
it's
Divya was also
helping
saying I
us.
will send it to you all.
Yeah, sir,
Okay.
it's helping us,
so is
helping us,
that
sir.
so Sanjay sir it is that the same set 1 set 2 set 3 set 4 on your page
Correct,
uh,
correct, correct.
all those 4 sets are the total 4 sets of the slide deck which you used during this training, right?
And
This
more
classes.
concept करके 5 है वहाँ पे. There are
There are more
5
More,
concept is also there,
more
right?
concept. So
so
Right.
वो भी
currently
मैं.
we can only view it, we cannot download it, right?
Right.
That
No,
is
I will
the
send it to you. That's not a problem.
yeah. Okay, before we conclude, Sanjay ji, one more thing. Now, what's next for us for the preparation point of view, mock runs, or taking which section of the book or books actually to be take a printout, read all. So, are we meeting next week also as a kind of a preparation? So now training project is over. Now the preparation project.
Correct.
So, are you
I
going to
will
have any
be
session on that?
next weekend. I should be available for some time if you, So on this group, if the set of people come back to me, I might do it. As a plan, it is not there. But next weekend, I am coincidentally free because I don't have a
So
batch
can we
yet.
have it for
Should
one
be
hour, just for 1 hour,
fine.
just preparation, focusing on the preparation part?
Yeah, yeah. So do whatever preparation start, and then we might review that. I mean, I'm not against that. So Vaibhav, I suggest that go ahead and set up that thing. Um, we'll do the discussion and see which time suits to all of us, and then we might meet. I mean, I don't have a problem over it.
Okay, okay.
So
Because